Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Reps, Virtual Reality, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, and Sports Workbook. We got Coach Herb Hand, the offensive line coach at Central Florida, and me and Coach Hand were just talking about the legend, the GOAT, and Pat Flattery, who I talked to on the phone yesterday, on the radio today, said that Jim McNally was the GOAT. So here he is. He is here. We are live, Coach McNally. And I was just letting Coach Hand know that they have some virtual reality goggles there at Central Florida. But I am not going to ask you to put those on. But more important than anything are the 6 words. I feel like I'm back in Johnson City and I've eaten some mushrooms. Eagles. Look at the Eagles. I got the 2 biggest Eagles fans in America. Don Henley. If you're watching this, Vince Gill. All right. Glenn Fry. We may summons you. We may have a seance. All right. The Eagles. Coach McNally. What do the Eagles mean to you?
I love it.
Yeah, this is it.
I won't play it.
Oh, play it, Coach.
Just
play
the intro.
As long as you don't start singing, we're good.
He's got 7 women on his mind, Coach. Wow. How could you narrow it down to 7, Don Henley? I mean, you taking it easy, Coach McNally.
I never knew. Hi, Coach.
Hey,
I never knew much about the Eagles until I kind of retired, even though I was doing all this consulting stuff. And I started going to the gym and got earphones, and I found this thing called Pandora. And you can listen to music for free. And I'm going to shut this, you know how on your phone you can put focus, do not disturb, so we will not be disturbed. Right. But anyway, so I started pressing the Eagles, and I knew a little bit about them, but I would follow, if I had enough money, I'd follow those fuckers all over the country. Yeah.
I was telling Coach Taylor yesterday, we were talking on the phone a little bit. I saw your Eagles, that tribute band you went to see the other night. They were awesome. I looked at all the posts the other night. Well, the last concert my wife and I went to see before COVID hit was the Eagles in Don Henley's hometown of Dallas, Texas. And it was an awesome show. And then the first concert that we went to see after they opened everything else back up, after all the COVID stuff was opened back up, we went to see the Eagles here in Orlando. And, man, they put on an unbelievable show. It was fantastic. But I'm a huge Eagles fan. So,
well, you know what I found out? I mean, I never saw them when they had Glenn Fry, but Vince Gill did an unbelievable job here in Buffalo. And I mean, he didn't skip a beat. Of course, he's a top singer, but because Don Henley said that he's the only guy that he wanted to replace.
Well, they put an unbelievable show on. The best part about it is when they play the Hotel California album from start to finish, and then they say, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to play every song that you know every single word to. And my wife and I, we've enjoyed two great concerts with them for sure. So I'm a little bit jealous of your shirt though.
Yeah, well, I got 2 of them. The thing about it is, if you ever get to see, of course, you're down in Florida, and I don't think they go. So this group, the Hotel California, that's their name. They've been together for like 35 years, and they're from Toronto. And if you didn't know that they weren't Don Henley and Vince Gill and Joe Walsh, you would think they're just as good. I mean, they've been together for so long.
Right.
They're out of Toronto, and they don't travel all over the country, but for $20, I saw them. And for when I got my Eagle tickets, I don't know, I paid some unbelievable amount for each ticket. I mean, it must have been $1,500.
Yeah, I didn't. My wife bought the tickets. I didn't ask her how much they cost.
Yeah.
I didn't want to know.
Yeah, so. And I agree, but
I think the next time I'm in upstate New York, I may have to look to see if your band is playing anywhere up there. I'm heading up this summer. So
yeah, you can just Google them, but they're called the Hotel California. But so anyway, yeah, I like them. If I was a groupie and single, I would follow them all over the country. I don't know why. There's something about their songs, you know. I mean, hell, they started in like 19, I don't know, 70.
I think it might have been late 60s, yeah, early 70s for sure.
Late 60s to 60s. So anyway, and I really like Adele.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a great female expert, but when I heard her when she came out, man, oh man, I thought she was great. Now she doesn't perform that much, but so anyway, yeah, that's that about the Eagles. Yeah.
So Coach Hand was telling me when he saw Jim McNally on Twitter. Now, I tried to tell you this, Coach McNally, that people may think that it is an imposter. So, Coach Hand, when you saw that Coach McNally was on Twitter, what did you think?
Well, when you know, and I try to stay dialed in on the particularly the guys that are in the O-line community, you know, that are on social media, and the guys that are willing to share, which, you know, Coach has gone above and beyond in that regard. But, you know, Coach actually, he followed me one night, and I was like, holy cow, is this actually Coach McNally on here? You know what I mean? And so I wound up sending him a DM saying what an honor it was for, you know, I grew up as an offensive lineman, you know, playing O-line in high school and through college. And at the time when I was playing, you know, was a time when Anthony Munoz was the best, and probably you know, anybody you can make the argument the greatest offensive lineman to ever put on a helmet. And then, you know, to find out as you go on, you know, hey, who's his coach, you know, and then we started going, I think back in 92 or so, might have been the first year that I went to the Cool Clinic in Cincinnati, and you know, I was just it was like my second year of coaching, and I was actually coaching linebackers at the time, but I played O-line in high school and college, and that's where my heart's always been. And I went with our offensive line coach from West Virginia Wesleyan College.
Wow, God bless you.
West Virginia. And we drove out to Cincinnati for the Cool Clinic, and got to hear, you know, Coach McNally speak. And I think Larry Bechtel might have spoke that year too or so, and of course Bob Wiley, and just the great O-line coaches that were there. It was almost like going to see the Eagles in concert. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it's like, you know. And you know, and then to have Coach McNally, like you say, follow me on Twitter was awesome. And I followed him right back and sent him a message. And, you know, Coach, you probably don't remember this. You know, when you spoke a couple of years ago, I was at the University of Texas, and you were speaking at
yeah, I remember when you were at Zerline's.
At Zerline's clinic, yeah.
You were sitting to my left.
I absolutely. I sat there for hours.
You were in the second row.
That's 100% right. And we just sat there, and you know, just soaking it all up and eating it all up, man. So it's great to see you now and what you're doing, sharing, you know, and investing into young coaches through the social media realm, and really giving back to the game in a way that is unprecedented, in my opinion. I mean, the things that you're putting out there is really been awesome.
Well, let me tell you how I got all that. I worked 10 years. Well, I just got done with my 10th year with the Bengals as a consultant, and I would do all these projects on the opponent's D-line, linebackers. So I'd have four or five games on each guy, or excuse me, on each team. And so when I would see a good technique or a good play, or whether it was regarding the player I'm trying to zero in on, or just the play or the technique, I would have our video guy. I'd say his name was Kent, the guy that worked. I'd say, Kent, put this one in this category, put this in this category. And I used to pay him extra because he worked his ass off for me. So when it was all said and done, I probably have 20,000 or more individual mini clips. And then I categorized them to issues and plays and techniques. If you name a technique, okay, I got it. Whether I used it or didn't use it, or if you name a play, I got it. If you name an offense, I pretty well got. If you were to name the Baltimore Raven offense, I got every play that they ran 1 year, in 1 year. If you want to see Kyler Murray on all his Wildcats, I got it. So it's unbelievable how I'm probably the only one that can do that, because I had a video guy work with me when I asked him, and then on my iPad, I would put them in special categories. And then I'd also put them on my phone, because I knew sooner or later the Bengals were going to say, listen, you're almost 80 years old. We got 23 coaches. Half of them are making over $1 million.
We got to sign Joe Burrow.
One of our coaches can do what you do. So, so I wanted to make sure. And then the video guy, what he did, he sent me a separate, whatever you call it, where you stick the thing in the computer. They took all of the things off the Bengal computer because they went to a different system, but he sent me a hard drive that I can plug in and get everything that I had before.
Right.
So I was nicely fired because the owner called me almost in tears, and he said that his daughter and the son-in-law have convinced him that because they've got so many coaches making so much money that they didn't need me. But he didn't say it like you're fired, but my $45,000 I don't get anymore.
That's that was probably the best $45,000 that anybody could ever spend in the history of football, if that's all they were paying you, number one.
Oh my God. And that's all they were paying me. But I had the ability, like I say, to get any, of course, a normal fan can get any game, but I mean, I could get it immediately. Practice would be over, and I'd get the practice in as soon as the video guys got up there and sent it to me. And the only thing, the owner's daughter called me, and she was very appreciative. She says, because a lot of the videos that I put out earlier, I mean, not yesterday or the day before, were practice videos, but they weren't necessarily of the play. It would be a drill, a practice drill. And she asked me, please don't do that anymore. You can put out the game stuff because anybody can do it, but don't put out, well, I don't have their videos from this year in OTAs, but I put a shitload of drills out there. And they were pretty adamant that they didn't want me to do that. Right. Because, you're showing you know, how, or maybe I put a play out in
Right,
a,
right.
in a practice team period.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were good to me. I mean, I'm almost 80 years old, and they kept me on for when I retired. Sean Payton hired me for 2 years, and then Callahan had me for 2 years with the Jets, and then the Bengals took me right away. So I think I'm the only guy my age that the NFL is paying as, I mean, a guy my age that was paying to be a consultant. Uh, Now, Tom Moore is still working full time, and he's like 86 years old.
Right.
But I don't know any other guys my age that were still doing what they allowed me to do.
They were blessed then.
Well,
Yeah,
what happened was, because I got close with John Strollo, who was not an NFL coach, but I coached him at Boston College. And then the combination of Scott Peters and then Callahan and then all these other videos, I've been able to stay up on what I think is the latest stuff.
Right.
That's the only reason that I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to send out, I've got 40 plays of wide zone issues. I'm so tired of the wide fucking zone, and it's nobody's fault, because this is the truth. In like 1987, 88, 89, we led the NFL in rushing like 3 years in a row. Alex Gibbs called me and he said, "Jim, how do you run that wide zone?" Now, this is the guru of the wide zone.
Right.
So I spent 2 days with him, and then he tweaked it and got it better and got all the updated great coaching points. But when he was coaching and you'd stick your head outside to reach a guy or something, they go with you, and you could cut the backside. So the combination of the defensive guys moving with your head and also being able to cut guys opened up huge lanes. And most of the big lanes were like almost behind the center.
Yeah.
And
the old bang, bend, bounce stuff.
yeah.
Bang, bend, and bounce. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they call it 18, when they knew that there was a 7 technique and the tight end could kiss off the 7, they'd call it something else. But anyway, since the 2 gapping of the down lineman, which when the lead guy would leave, that guy would just knock the shit out of his inside part of him and knock him back.
Yep.
And the next guy couldn't get him. And then the next guy would be going so hard to get the down guy. The uncovered guy would be the line coach of the Bengals calls it going to the screws, or take 3 steps and go north. Well, shit, then that uncovered guy wasn't able to help the guy to his inside who might be coming, like a shaded nose. The guard would just take off.
Right.
And the reason I know the NFL's kind of caught up to it is that Henry from Tennessee, who's probably the best running back in football because of his size and speed, he can hardly make a yard with the wide zone.
Right.
The way they are doing it. So that's where I incorporated, from learning from Strollo, what I call the mid zone. That's where you're still firing out, but you're square, you're rooting, you're not vacating. Right now, the uncovered guy kind of shuffles so he can help either person. And the only team that really does run it that way are the Chiefs, because they run across the backfield and run those RPOs, and maybe the Eagles do a little bit, but piercing the line, the word I use, or vacating too soon And when the defenses started to two gap, it kind of took away.
We use the wide zone here sparingly.
Yes.
And really it's become more of an auxiliary run for us at Central Florida. And I grew up like going back to when in the early 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, early 2000s at Clemson and at West Virginia, particularly at West Virginia, where we ran a lot of wide zone. We ran two versions of the zone. We ran wide zone and we ran inside zone. Okay.
Right.
And inside zone for us, and it still remains the same. The track of the back is really vertical. I mean, it's, you're out of the shotguns. We run a lot of shotgun runs, obviously. And, the track of our back is, we're going to chase. And I always use the term chase.
Yes.
The backside hip of the center.
I love it. I love it.
On the inside zone. And then on the wide zone, the track for our back. And I know some people will use a ghost tight end or the tight end or a ghost tight end. But we always used to say, again, using the word chase, we wanted to chase the play side hip of the tackle because we knew that hip was going to move and we wanted to get that stretch. And it's like you were saying, Coach, initially when the wide zone was really in its heyday, and there's still a place and time for the wide zone, but I think again, ours is more of an auxiliary run concept. But when it's in its heyday, you could use what that defensive lineman was being coached against him. Yeah. And Rich Rodriguez always used to say, make that guy defend what he's defending by stretching him. If you're telling the 5 technique, if his coach is telling him, don't get your ass reached.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can, with my hat placement, my footwork and my hand placement, I can stretch him and create lateral displacement and then get a cutoff block somewhere on the backside, wherever it happened on the backside. And like you said, a lot of times those wide zone plays would bend back all the way behind the center. And that's where the biggest runs came from because you were getting somebody cut down on the backside. But now with the 2 gap stuff and everybody's playing and then falling back and playing and falling
my God.
back. And it is made the wide zone a little bit more difficult to get those huge gash runs. And I know there's a lot of people out there that still run it and are married to it, and that's awesome. I also think it's a play that takes a lot of reps. You know what I mean?
Yes, the naked is probably the big thing. In fact, Callahan told me he hates the fucking zone. He says the only reason we really run it at all is because of the naked.
Sure. And the action, and that's something that that we have had some success with is all the play actions and the nakeds off of it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean? I'll tell you the other thing, talking about play action. Okay, here's what I have found in all my years of doing play action. If you've ever just run a gap protection, which is basically high school. Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that colleges or NFL don't run it. But when you just protect your gap, you're blocking down like we used to call them K and Spider and all that stuff.
Right.
And you just protect your gap. The guy that's in the gap doesn't always stay in the gap.
Right.
And another guy you block back on, he jumps front side. So we started changing on our gap protection that we're gapping for a man. And here's the other thing I found out for it. Let's say the right tackle's got a 3 technique and there's a middle linebacker, or I'm just giving you an example, that we learned that when that tackle blocks down to cover that B gap and there's a 3 technique, push the 3 technique as hard as you can and make them get into the A gap, because a lot of times that middle backer would hug or scrape. And so we knew that if you were going to protect your gap, okay, make sure the outside guy next to a down lineman pushes the down lineman and makes him go to the inside gap. That was probably one of my smartest things that I ever came up with. That I'm not bragging on it. I'm just saying that most of the things you copy from everybody else. But that was one thing that I came up with, because I would block down on the 3, and that was my gap. But the Mike backer would be scraping or hugging. I said, "What the fuck?
Right.
How can I do that?" And then you're always responsible for a corner or an edge, a free safety might blitz, but we wouldn't always be accounting for that guy unless we had a key. Because if they brought a corner cat and you were all gapping the left tackle or the tight end, if he was on the backside, they had to block the widest gap.
Right.
But that still created issues, because I changed the gap protection to gapping for people rather than, so I would just pretty much stay square like you're blocking down, and it was better than just trying to protect your gap. So that was one of the worst things that I was ever involved with, was gap protection, because I had more sacks or pressures from that than I did from regular drop back pass protection.
Yeah, at least in regular drop back pass protection, the way we, with the 6-man pros now, you're setting, if you're setting to people, at least I know who's accountable for that guy. You know what I'm saying? And when you have those full slide protections, which we still run some full slide protections, and it always becomes that backside linebacker coming over the top of the 3 technique and scraping, and then you're like, well, shit, the quarterback's got to get the ball off, and you're going, hey, well, who's accountable for him? Or the quarterback's going to get hit in the mouth, okay? Or you've also got, your coordinator who's trying to get the running back in a 7-man slide protection to also be a check down guy because he wants to get him out to be a flat control or something. And you're going, well, who's going to block all these hats? You know what I mean? When those type of things happen. But the slide protection stuff, it sounds like it's very simple, but you can create your own issues.
Absolutely.
Because you're not in a true gap protection. Like you're saying, you're not sliding to men, to people.
You know what I found out too, that I think everybody kind of found out, the old under fire zone, where the end would pinch and the backer would scrape, that, what we had found out is when the tackle would block the defensive end would go so far into the center that the tackle could shove that guy and pick up the scrape linebacker, and the fullback could go to the end man, and you didn't have to double read the Mike to the Sam, because the long stick of the 5 technique in the under defense, he'd go so damn far inside that the guard could block him, and you just basically booked the backside linebacker because he wasn't coming when they would just run that old Mike, Sam, fire zone with that low safety coming down. So that was another thing that we kind of fell into, where the quarterback didn't have to throw it hot.
Right.
But we had to know the defensive guy. The biggest thing, and I was not that familiar to it till I got involved with Strollo and Scott Peters, is the plain long stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was brought up with the flipper and the
shoulder. I'm still, I got to be honest with you. Like, I have got to get more comfortable, because I'm a Crowther, flipper. And I think that there's, particularly with our run game and what we do, we're very downhill, and I want to knock the hell out of those down linemen. I want to move those guys. And I've been, following all of your play long, thought process. and I'm trying to think about how I can incorporate that into what we do. Now, here's some things that I do. I have a different way of saying it, like foot fire. Okay, here's what I tell my guys: is that I want you to move your feet faster, not further. Move your feet faster, not further, because what happens is guys have a tendency to overstride, and then they get themselves out of position, and then they wind up piercing the line. You know what I mean? We put a big emphasis here in our run game on handling level 1 defenders and displacing level 1 defenders, and then that kind of goes into with the shuffle technique that you talk about, and playing rooted with your feet in the ground and not piercing, but really handling level 1. Okay. And the way I put it to our guys is I'll say, linebackers and safeties, they make tackles. Okay. D linemen cause TFLs and fumbles, and we want to eliminate the tackles for loss. And obviously we don't want to have somebody running free to the mesh point and knocking the hell out of our mesh point, in the backfield. So we got to handle level 1 defenders. And that goes to the whole concept of not piercing the line of scrimmage, and not, we got to make sure we're moving the down guys first. If you move the down guys, okay, you're going to gain yards. It may be 2 yards.
Yeah.
Not every run has to go for 30.
Yeah.
Coach, get your GA to get you some water, Coach.
Ooh, I'm getting cranked up.
Yeah, get your GA, Coach. We're gonna be on here a while, Coach.
You have to go get me another cup of coffee, Coach.
Yeah, get you a cup, Coach. Get you a cup of coffee.
Here's my Navy SEAL coffee, because we had a Navy SEAL play for us this year.
No, seriously, Coach Hand, get you some water. Get you some water, man. I'm a fly on the wall, man.
I want him to have a heart attack.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Coach Hand, the thing that I didn't really understand about playing long, it's not just playing long. It's, until I understood it, it's not just, you're playing long. It's boom. I mean, it's like proactive. I mean, it is. I mean, you're playing long. There's not even. I mean, it's from the ground up. Whatever hand you're using, whether you use the tip of the spear or you use a double, whatever you want to call that, it's when the ball is snapped, I'm like that. Now I might have to get closer to the guy or whatever, but like if I'm pass blocking and I'm going to my outside and I want to use my outside hand, I mean, it's boom. Yeah. And until I really understood that, because no coaches know how to coach that. I mean, they don't necessarily understand proactive. They understand reactive, where my hands are up or I'm moving over here and then I'll hit the guy, or but once you understand being proactive, which means you get him before he gets you. Right. And if your kids have got decent long arms, not a real short arm guy, you will touch him before he touches you. Right. That's the only thing that convinced me, like blocking down, like the kiss off guy, high leg on a double team, you'd hit him with a shoulder and forearm. Right. Man, when you're going down on that high leg, and you push him on that hip, I mean, you're on that guy so fast. Now you got to gain some ground going forward. But the thing about it is, when I get the shoulder, flipper shoulder in there, I'm mired into the guy. When I play with length, the thing about playing with length, whatever, you're pushing the guy from the side, his hip, blah, 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 is I have space to see where the linebacker is. And I can also take the down guy, boom, and torque him, or we call it a hammer and a torque, because I'm on him so much sooner that when I strike him, but when I get mired with the shoulder or the flipper, I'm mired in and I can't see as well. Plus, sometimes I get grabbed. So I didn't really understand all that until I kept seeing it over and over and over. And
let me ask you this, Coach. How do you balance the playing long, okay?
yes,
With and being being
surgeon.
proactive with not piercing. How do you balance that? That's the one thing that I have a question on, you know.
Well, if I'm playing long, okay, like let's say this chair, I use a lot of props. I'm the only guy that ever did the cool clinic without a PowerPoint, without a video, blah blah blah. So if I'm playing long versus this guy here, okay,
Right, I got you.
let's say he's a one technique and I'm the right guard on a tight zone. So take that first little brace step and I lunge. I mean, okay, and he is the guy that doesn't allow me to pierce. So as I'm going like this and I'm looking to my gap, then I move laterally to get my linebacker or I look to get whatever. So if I'm uncovered, it's easy not to pierce because I shuffle.
Right.
The tight zone, I just go like, one little drop step over, and then I have a high leg or I rewind. Yeah. If it's a wider zone, I take like a kick slide shuffle, boom, boom. I have this hand here, then I go to try to kill the end or go up on the backer. So you're only playing long. Well, if I'm a tackle on a pass, so I'm going to the outside and I want to keep my shoulder square. So I pump my outside arm to keep my shoulder square, and then I get close to him and boom. And as soon as I do that, he could knock it down, but it's so proactive. You get him before he gets you. Right. But the point is, if he did get your outside hand, as soon as you strike it, you pull it back. Boom, boom. Right. That gets you back on your own center of gravity so you don't fall on your face. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying to you, when you play long, you're hitting something that doesn't let you pierce.
Right, I understand. Yep. So and I'll tell you what, I actually showed I might have sent it to my offensive line guys during the spring when you were talking about, being proactive, right, with the hand, but also pulling that other arm back.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it makes it even that much longer. And that made great sense to me. And I actually took that clip and I think I sent it to my offensive line and said, hey, this is what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to get across, like when we're going in our one-on-one pass pro stuff, which I love that drill because, hey, it's going to come down to, me being able to big on big protect when it's nut cutting time. Okay. And I'm playing, like, let's say I'm the right guard, and the way we call it a stab set is what you would call an up kick, right? So we're stabbing, okay, and we're being aggressive. And what we're trying to do, if I'm sitting on a 3 technique, right, I'm a right guard, I'm going to attack him, I'm going to stick, I want to be proactive with that outside arm because I want to dictate the rush. I'm going to say to him, if you're in a 3 and I'm in a Bob situation, okay, I want to dictate this rush. I'm not going to let you dictate to me what's going on, okay? And in doing that, I know if you're going to stay to my to the B gap, to my outside, awesome. Now I'm going to stay square. I'm just going to widen your ass and widen the pocket. But what am I thinking? Well, I'm thinking if I'm going to up kick, stab set this guy, be proactive with my outside hand, I'm basically knowing what's his counter going to be. It's got to be something back across my face, whether it's he's going to try to club me, cross face me, spin, whatever. And I've got my inside hand ready to clamp, as you would say, right? And clamp that guy as he tries to cross face me. And that's what the whole idea of being proactive with it. But when you said, hey, pull that arm back as you're punching, man, that really resonated.
Well, the other thing I learned that the kid that I must have shown 30 clips on at the Cool Clinic 3 or 4 years ago is he not only do that, but he dropped his inside foot first,
Right.
which actually lengthened the up kick. So it's not only
Was that
stepping
Bertoni?
forward, it's dropping your inside foot, like a 1-2.
Yeah. Was that the when you were showing the clips on Joel Bertoni? Is that the guy you're talking
No,
about?
it was when I was showing the clips on Alex Redmond.
Alex Redmond. Okay.
62 from the Bengals, because where I noticed it was if he had a guy that was like a 4-eye, he would take one kick step, but like a foot fire, his second step would come back. It was just a natural boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 boom. But
Yeah.
the up kick, that technique itself is the best for a guard on the man side, because you protect the inside because your post foot is already dropped,
Right.
because you're stepping forward. Your inside hand and your post foot protects the inside because you're really inside out, and the hand and the foot take away the outside. I can't say that it didn't work every time, but of my experience, when one of our guys used an up kick, it was probably 9 out of 10 successful. I don't know that. Because we were inside out and a guy would go inside like on a TT, the guard could follow him in, shove him with the up kick hand and pick up the loop. He could flatten a TE. The only thing I would tell him was, if it was a team that used ETs,
Right.
and Coach Hand, when a team uses an end tackle twist, the guard's always, is he shaking and baking? Is he setting me up? Am I going to get picked? Fuck that. Okay. If there's any chance at all of an ET, even though they do them from threes, I would up kick, okay, and then back up.
Sink.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even have to think about getting picked, because as soon as I could do that with a forward jump. A forward jump, what Cleveland calls, is you jump them with a double clamp, or you jump them with a double under, or you jump them with a double vice. But as soon as you jump them, you back up because you think there's a threat of an end tackle, which would be if you jumped a guy on 3rd and long and you had a 2 technique and they had a tendency that they do ETs from a 2, I'd separate. If it was 1st and 10, I'd stay locked on the guy. So separating back home again for the guard made it so easy that he didn't have to think, oh, is it an ET? Is the guy setting me up? Blah, blah, blah.
If you're playing a team that, and because obviously the games that you get up front on 3rd down, whether it's 2-man games, 3-man games, blitz, twist combos, all the stuff that we're seeing now, the exotic stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a place in your thoughts on 3rd down? I've been a big, we always call it tango. Okay. It's just an alert call that we use that basically says let's get ready to dance. You know what I'm saying? Because these guys are going to be moving. So we always have just an alert call, hey, tango, tango. And we would, I hate to use the word soft set, on 3rd down.
No, I know what you're saying.
Trying to make sure I can sort all this stuff out when there's hair, skin, and shit flying everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can jump a guy when you're sorting, as long as, whether you use an up kick or you step forward, as long as when you strike him, you back right up.
I got you.
Because you're right. You're everybody. Here's the thing that pisses me off, and I put it on fucking Twitter. It just fucking gripes me. I'm going crazy. That's, if I ever coached again, this be the first thing I do. I'm going to draw this for you, and it's not anything that you would not understand. But let's say that this whatever fuck I got here.
Move it towards the kitchen door. There you go.
Okay. So that center guard and tackle have got those three guys.
Right,
okay?
I got you. Yep.
Now, all the shit that can happen, the end can pinch, the backer can scrape. Okay, I call it a squeeze. Okay, the center steps up with his near foot. The guard steps up with his near foot. Okay, here we go.
There.
Like the top one. And then the guard and center immediately get back home again. Okay, so after they've struck that guy, over here, they get, but what everybody does is the center kicks, the guard might put his hand up so they don't get picked on a nose, whatever. And I see it particularly like with a one technique. Shit, if I had a one technique now, like the second diagram, I'd have that guard use an up post, meaning stepping forward, and I'd have that center move laterally and use an up kick.
Right. I got you.
Diagram number 2, and then get back home again, because there's not a twist that you can't pick up unless there's a shade and a 3. Okay, like if you had a shade and a 3 technique. Okay,
right.
Like the guy is over here on the guard.
Right.
Well, that would be impossible if that guard stepped inside. I mean,
right.
But he can switch a 4-eye, because 9 out of 10 times in those overloads, where they got like a tackle, an end, somebody's going to loop on the other side of the center. So when the center uses an up kick, his dropped foot is to the side where somebody's going to cross face him.
Right.
Okay. And the biggest mistake, so even when I was at the Bengals 30 years ago, okay, if the center and guard were even just going for, and there was nobody else doing it, and I never understood. I mean, it was like, fuck, I wasn't a fucking Rhodes Scholar, but what I'm saying is, even if I had like this defense right there, okay?
Right.
Okay, this center can kick this way, okay? All right, and then this guard, okay? So the center, okay, he can kick opposite the nose and keep his eyes on the mic.
Right.
Okay. If the nose cross faces, he's waiting for him. If he's not, he just recovers and blocks him, because the guard is there, because the guard's either hand checking him or dragging him or whatever fucking words you use, or stepping forward, because the culprit for me was the 3 technique. And to see the center and a guard kick to the same side as the shade and leave the poor other man side guard alone on the 3 was stupid.
Criminal.
Yeah. Now, if you slid, if you slid protect, then the center was helping. But if you had a protection where the shade side was dueling, then that guard, and that's where the up kick comes in. If you have to sort and you can't have center help to the 3, that guard using the up kick is the very, very best technique on the man side, whether it's play action, whether it's whatever.
If you have let's say you've got a 4-1 box, and that Mike backer's dead balls on the center.
Yep.
Okay. And let's say that you're sliding. Let's say you're in a 6-man protection, and your ID is outside, like an old school jet protection.
Yeah.
And you're I say old school jet protection, but jet protection, where your ID is outside of the tackle. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're working to the will linebacker. He's outside of the tackle, and the back is responsible for Mike to Sam.
Yeah.
Okay. How would that change? Would you change your set angles then? Because the back is outside.
The guard, the the center, the guard, and the tackle are responsible for a tackle and an end and an outside. Is this 3 for 3?
Yeah, 3 for 3. Three
Okay.
for 3. But the backer you're working to is, because here's what I like to do in that situation is give my tackle a true opportunity to jump set that defensive end, because he knows that the center and the guard are sliding, or the guard is sliding towards him, so he can be ultra aggressive on that and change his set angle up.
Here's what Howard Mudd would say in that situation. He'd say, "Don't leave to look." So the bottom line is, if whether you jump or not, I would jump. Tackle, okay, even though he's got that wide guy, he would set on the end, believe it or not, with an inside target, okay, excuse me, he'd set on the end with an inside set, more or less. I mean, what I'm saying is he's not going to, like Bechtel used to do, he's not going to overplay the end because he's got help from the guard, because the guard's got help from the center. So if I was the tackle, okay, and this guy was a defensive end,
Right.
I'll be the left tackle, okay?
There you go.
Yeah, I'll be whatever, okay? So what I'm saying is I got another guy out there. He's way the fuck out there, okay?
Right.
So I'm setting here, boom, okay? But my eyes, boom, okay? All right. So bottom line is, if that guy came, whether I vertical set or whether I immediately go and get that guy, but I found out when I overset this guy, then the guard had to overset his guy. Then the poor center who snapped the ball could not pick up a 2 technique that went straight ahead.
Right.
Because what people used to do with us is make three guys you got to block, but they come straight ahead. And so when you come straight ahead, the center never blocked the defensive. Now, if they come right to you, it's easy.
Sure.
If they run a twist and they come right to you, it's easy. So
what does it mean to leave to look?
I told our defensive guys, just go straight ahead. When you 3 guys, just go straight the fuck ahead. And
so don't leave to look. That means like that guard's leaving that 2 technique to look in the B gap.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Don't leave to look.
You can have an outside target. Maybe you've got to set a little softer. I'd probably jump them and back up, okay? Because we know the snap count. So what I'm saying is that I might up kick that guard and then back up as fast as I can. I might take the center because that guard has up kicked that 2 technique, okay? And then he's got the end, but he's got time. Boom, boom,
Right.
So,
yeah, we try to go, like, if we have a I'm going to be you for a second, Coach. I got my chair right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I was the right or the let's say I'm the left guard, okay, we're sliding to an outside backer who's outside the tackle, okay, and I've got a 2 technique on me or a head up guy. As I set, I would still pistol. We call this pistol. I want to pistol and hold I want to hold space to help the center, right? But I've got kind of a half and half. I've got half my man on the inside guy, but I've got my eyes out here to help the tackle so that he can really set aggressively on that end to try to help, maintain the width of the pocket. And I'm talking about 3rd down situations, obviously.
Yeah.
But I want that guard to be able to hold for the center while I'm also protecting the tackles inside. And that way, if that guy does, if the defensive end tries to come up and under, I can come over there and end the rush. And that's kind of what I was getting at. Would you teach the tackle there to be a little bit more aggressive?
I think, Coach, what you could do then, if that's what you like, is if I am this guard, okay,
right,
and I got a 2 technique, okay, but I'm responsible out here, okay? I could use what I call an up post. I could step up, okay, with my, okay, whichever fucking guard I'm on.
Which way you sliding, right or left?
Okay, I am the right guard, but to you, I'm probably the left guard. Bottom line is, so I got this guy out here.
Right.
As long I know the center's coming, okay, so I don't have to worry about my inside. Ball is snapped. I can proactively up
Yeah.
post, boom, whatever.
And then leave. Okay.
This stick a hand, but jar the fuck out of him. Boom,
Right.
boom, and then kick back. You know what I mean? So it's like a version of an up kick, but I call it an up post.
Up
because
post,
you're
yeah.
moving your post foot forward.
Right.
If I could, I would try to figure out, even on those short protections, when I could jump. Like I said, that we were seeing a lot of, particularly from the Rams, Tennessee, they'd put a nose, a 4-eye, and an outside backer to the same side.
Right.
And to the other side, there was just one guy.
Yeah, we call
Okay.
we make that a three. We call that a 3 big call. That
Yes.
means I got 3 bigs to one side of the center, and
A lot of times the back couldn't block because they had a big linebacker over there and the back couldn't block them. So you
Right.
would think, hey, we're going to slide everybody.
yeah,
That
because we
didn't
got a
work.
bad matchup.
So
Right.
we had to somehow figure out how to block those 3 guys. So the
Did you
point
treat
is,
that? Did you treat that like a 5-0 call or like a jam call that you may have called? Like we're going to take these 5 guys on the line of scrimmage.
we would teach that like a 5 down, and what we would do is, what I would do, we didn't do, but what I was do, 9 out of 10 times to that overloaded side, somebody was going to cross the center.
Yep. Somebody's coming
So
back.
I would always end up with the center's dropped foot opposite the guard, which means the center would up kick.
Right.
The guard would up post.
Right.
Same shade. And he could kick, they could both squeeze, and that guard could step back and pick up anything that came to him. But he couldn't pick up if there was a shade and a 3, because by the time I stepped up to squeeze the nose, the 3 was on me too fast. But I could, with quickness, boom, and then just kick out. And even if a 4-eye came into me, I had time.
Yeah.
And that's what helped, rather than just the center setting to his shade, the guard setting to his shade, and still putting a hand up to worry about the pick. No. Squeeze that fucking nose, guard. The tackle would have to vertical set, because he'd never know that there wasn't going to be a T, a TE, where he'd have to grab that 4-eye, but when that other guy would loop, okay, he took so long to loop that the guard could still step up and punch that shade and back up and pick up a loop. And anyway, that's what I would call the word squeeze.
Right.
Because, like I say, the poor center was all alone on the shade, and the guard would have a tendency to vacate a little too much. And even though he had his hand up, so if you're going to put that hand up so you don't get picked, you might as well step forward with your post foot and jam the shit out of that nose.
Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense.
That's what we would call a squeeze.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Frank Pollock, the line coach, did not do that, but I kept trying to bug him. I said, "You fucking do that. I mean, you have time." And the other thing we would see from Tennessee, particularly, they were very good at it. They would line up these guys, Jeffrey Simmons and some other guys. They'd line them up like in a 4-eye or a loose 3, and they'd bring that tackle in to the guard and then go back out and run an ET.
Right.
So that's where we had the guard try to jam the shit out of that 3 technique with an up kick, then back up so he didn't get picked.
Right.
Because it took a little bit of time, even though it was an ET, when that end went in, or the 4-eye guy or the loose 3 guy went in and then out. Okay, it took a little bit of time for that end, because that end didn't just come in right now. He had to kind of time it up with the delay of the looping 3 technique. So we were seeing a lot of ETs from a 3 technique. But once we jammed that 3 that was trying to go back and loop, we almost knocked him on his ass, because we knocked him so far off balance, because his main thought wasn't to beat you inside, it was to set you up and go
right
outside.
and then get back out. Yeah.
When you jammed him with that up kick, it disrupted his whole thought process.
Yeah. How much, Coach? How much stuff when you would be game planning? I know this has turned into like I'm sorry, I'm asking all these questions right now, but this is, by the way,
great, man.
I just want to say this. This for me, Coach, and I don't care if anybody else in America is watching this. I hope there's a whole bunch of people watching it. I really
they're gonna watch it.
But here's what I'm saying, Coach. Just for me personally, this is like a bucket list dream come true for me to be able to talk with you and have
crazy,
this time
man.
with you. So anyway,
there is a God, ain't it, Coach McNally? There is a God. There is a God to get you on Twitter, and for this to happen.
Yeah, you got me on. I didn't know.
It's amazing. When you would be game planning,
yes.
Okay, how much of your game plan thoughts would go into people and having to deal with people? Like, when I mean by people, obviously you've had to block some of the greatest players that have ever put on a helmet, right? I mean, Lawrence Taylor or Aaron Donald or
Brown, okay, Reggie White,
whoever it is, Reggie White. How much thought went into people versus your scheme rules? And
it was all people. Basically, if they weren't using what everybody's using now is the version of the bear or the 3-4, where there's a 0 nose and a middle back and a 2-4 eyes. But basically, how are we going to block the 3 technique? Because the 3 technique usually was their best down lineman. Now, they may have a great defensive end. In the old days, in the 50 or the 3-4 defense, it was the outside linebackers.
Sure.
In particular, Lawrence Taylor, like you said. And in fact, when everybody was blocking Lawrence Taylor back in the way back, they were popping the guard out.
Right. Mollying. You just call that mollying.
Yeah, Molly would be a double read, but
right.
If they were sliding, okay, they'd still pop the guard. And when they would do that, Lawrence Taylor would kill him.
Yeah.
So until
I grew up a huge Giants fan, Coach. So
yes.
That's like bringing back a whole lot of memories.
And until we figured out, particularly Leonard Marshall and Lawrence Taylor would do this TE, but they'd only do it if you were sliding. So if they saw you slide, Leonard Marshall would 2-gap Bill Parcells the inside half of the offensive tackle, and Lawrence Taylor would loop around, and they'd have 2 guys in the B gap. So until we learned how the guard could jump Leonard Marshall, and now it would be an up kick, actually.
Right.
You could flatten him and still pick up Lawrence Taylor coming around, even though he was a great player. That was better than. So if the guard, once we started to fan or slide block, okay, we had the guard jump Leonard Marshall, so he would almost make Lawrence Taylor bubble over the top.
Right.
But if you just set normal kick over there and the tackle kind of vertical for Lawrence Taylor, then they would run that, we called it a giant stunt. They'd run that giant stunt and nobody could fucking block it.
I learned that the hard way one night when I was at Vanderbilt and we were playing South Carolina and they had Melvin Ingram and Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
And, it was when Clowney was a freshman. And I think my left guard still has PTSD from that night. You know what I mean? So that was not a fun night. They had some dudes. When you got those matchups, that's why I was asking is, there's so many times.
Yeah, like with Aaron Donald, before they started playing all these whatever protections, were overloads and this, that, and the other. I mean, you better slide or snuggle or get the center. I don't care if he's in the middle or but that's where we found that even if the center went away from Aaron Donald, that the up kick had a tendency to neutralize him a little bit, even though he was so damn quick to the outside, because you were on him so fast, you had a chance. But
Right.
if you just set soft on Aaron Donald and your line was going the other way, he would kill any guard.
Right.
Yeah. I got a clip that I put out there in game and in practice where the right guard named Kappa up kicked Aaron Donald and just stoned him. So I think that's where Aaron Donald took his helmet off and they had that fight with the Bengals when they scrimmaged against him. But you're right. Yes. Personnel was a real key. I'll tell you what's a real key too on the running game. And nobody really blocks them, even though they talk about it. Some of these teams have got such good linebackers that can run and are quick. They make all the tackles.
Right.
And nobody ever comes off on them because they fall back or you can't catch them or, you can push them by the hole. But, and if you pierce for them, you wouldn't help the down guys. So,
right.
I'm changing the subject now, but I'm not so sure. In the old days, you used to read the down lineman on like the stretch play, the end or the three technique. Now I'm not sure. Okay, I don't know if the back can do it. Now I'm not sure you don't read the linebackers because they're always falling back in the hole. The back makes a cut. There's a fucking linebacker waiting for him. So the guy
we've had some really big discussions at places I've been at, including here about, because one of our kind of bread and butter plays has been the split zone, the split inside zone, whatever you want to call it, with a
guy coming back.
And people have gotten to be so good at fitting that by back fitting the linebackers, and so the discussion then became, okay, when we're running split zone, because what'll happen, right? Those two backers, they're going to pitchfork back, and they're going to work for the cutback, and then the safety or whoever's out there in support, whether it's a nickel or the safety falling down into that C gap area. Okay, do we on the split zone? Do you just track it on the split zone and don't work to hats? Whereas on an inside zone where you're not getting split flow, right? I mean, we're hardball IDing and we're saying, hey, we're working to these hats. This combination's going, whether they call it an ace or a solo or a whatever block you call it up front, right? It's going to number 43, for instance, okay, on an inside zone. But if it's split zone, you actually just work to an area and don't chase the back fitters. And then try to, because we went through and looked at our cutups.
Well, you're right. So that becomes particularly where you don't pierce the line of scrimmage.
Correct. Yeah, you don't chase back.
And that's where playing long, you can see the linebacker, whatever. But if you're mired in, so I'm agreeing with you 100%.
Yeah, and because we went and we looked at all of our cutups one year, and all of the big runs on the split zone in particular. This is when I was at Texas. They were hitting front side. because and it used to be on the split zone before everybody started water falling back with the backers, was that the back would press it and then he'd cut it back, and that's where the big runs were hitting on the cutback, right off the split zone. But then they got to where, like you're saying, the backers are falling back, and then all of a sudden all of our big runs started coming out the front side. And so we said, hey, why don't we just stay on track with it and track block the split zone rather than hardball ID the split zone and say, hey, we're working to these specific men. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. When you bring a guy back, I don't think it's that complicated to track whoever you're tracking. Where they screw themselves are these smart coordinators that get these jet sweeps going one way, jet sweep going the other way. You have something where you ID, where you say, there's going to be another guy in the box. So everybody's pushing. Well, I mean, really pushing, where the backside tackles almost got to get the mic.
Right.
They never fucking work. They don't work. They just don't fucking work. Now, I'm not talking about if you got just a tight end that's coming back and then, because if you got an extra guy that you think's going to be in the box, what I always learned was that when you bring a guy back, if they think there's going to be an extra guy to the side where you're going to bring a guy back, you don't bring that guy back. He blocks like the strong, a lot of times they drop the strong safety and they dog him or something, or they got an extra guy front side. So we could keep our same rules, okay, because of the coverage. If we felt that there's going to be an extra guy play side, we wouldn't bring that guy back. And it was either up to the back to outrun that guy, or maybe you were running a zone read, or
right.
I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I do know there were a number of times when we took that guy that would come back and we did not bring him back.
Right.
That was
that was a really good run for us here last year.
Oh yeah.
Particularly against what what everybody's calling the mint front or the tight fronts now with the four eyes. Everybody's playing that version of that, and to keep the tight end front side now. And now you don't have to worry about all that crap that can happen off the front side.
It basically becomes duo, because that's the way we would, with one middle backer with one back, we would foot fire that guard because he didn't know whether he was going to help the four eye or help the nose, because they had to block the middle backer. So when we would have a 6-man blocking front and they'd be in 6 guys, which generally doesn't happen, but so it almost became like duo. Now, if there was 2 linebackers with a 0 nose, then that front side guard, he would just start firing his feet, and then the front side tackle would overlap that 4-eye. He tried to get underneath him, actually.
Right.
So rather than hit and escape.
Now, we got to where what we did with that last year, which is really a good run for us, was against 2-backer box with the 4-eye and the nose. Okay, now we had a really good center last year, and we zeroed him up on the nose. We let him handle the nose guard, and we took both guards and double teamed the 4-eyes. And on the front side, we were trying to take that front side 4-eye and put him in the C gap.
Absolutely.
Knock his ass out into the C gap and then get vertical.
Absolutely.
And on the backside, we ran it like it was, it's nothing more than a loose B block.
Yeah.
Right. And so we wanted the guard to help set a point, but that tackle came. What the thought process was for the tackle is, I'm taking all of this 4-eye. I'm going double under on the 4-eye, and the guard would give me like a little chip. Now, this is where I think what you're saying with playing long and coming and stabbing that hand in there now, I think I could probably get that shoulder turned a little bit better for the tackle to come and overtake on the double under.
Yeah.
Because I've always taught,
and if the
I want blocking surface.
Oh, no, I was too. But if they did rock the nose back, then that guard, when he hand checks, is still kind of working kind of lateral
I'm with you.
Or, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
Right.
He's basically so.
Yeah.
Boom. I mean, boom. So
Right.
that's my outside, and then I'm
Yep.
oh, I can do it with this hand better. I'm what the fuck am I? I'm the right guard.
Stabbing the foreeye, checking the nose.
Yeah, boom, foreeye. But I'm right here, but I'm kind of working towards the nose.
That's how you say it. We always say move your feet faster, not further. Move your feet faster, not further.
Yeah.
Don't overstride and pierce.
Yeah.
Move them faster.
David DeCastro, I've sent a million clips on him.
I love watching him play.
Almost every run block, he was firing his feet.
Yeah.
Even when he double teamed, then he'd end up with like a high leg covering the guy as the postman. But he fired his feet every play.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember a play that when I watched him over the last 8 to 10 years, that he didn't just fire his feet.
Right. That's great stuff.
Coach
Taylor, you just been
I'm a fly on the wall, man. You know, I'm just a high school coach in Richmond, Virginia. You know,
oh, you're full of shit.
Coaching. I'm a used car salesman. I coach.
Yeah, you are a fucking used car salesman. Every time he gets an idea, he says, "Hey, coach, will you come on with this guy?" He had a special forces guy that was selling this virtual reality thing where the players could look at defenses and so forth. Now, I'm almost 80 years old. So he's talking to this special teams forces guy that's selling this nice product. "Hey, coach, wouldn't you like to buy this? Wouldn't you like to get this?" He didn't say buy. "Wouldn't you like one of these?"
Yeah, try it out.
Well, what am I going to tell a special forces Army veteran that gave his life? Well, I'm really not that fucking interested in this virtual reality thing. Now, if I was a line coach at Central Florida and I had a group of 10 or 12, 15 guys and we could have them look at but I'm fucking 80 years old. I'm sitting in my house blocking my wife.
Steve Stonier.
They had the virtual reality guys come in several years ago. I don't know if I was at Penn State I think we were at Penn State when they initially started, tinkering with that stuff. And I think that there's some value in it, but I don't know, how I think it's great, I guess for the players nowadays, right? Because that's what they do. Okay. Yes. I mean, I see my kids have that they got that VR thing and they play different. I've battled my son in some fighting games and things of that nature on there, whatever. But and I could see the value in it, I guess, for the mental reps of it. But I don't know if sometimes it's a little bit overblown myself.
Well, and the last thing, and I know you don't do this, Coach Hand.
All right, go ahead, give it to me.
I used to do this a long time ago, but I kind of quit doing it. But my big bitch, and I think I'm going to end with this because I got to do some other things because I run this big summer program for my friends and I'm getting all these fucking checks and things I have to check off, So anyway, they block these drills where a guy holds a bag and they're on a board. And
right.
The defensive guy never charges. He never comes forward. You just think of all the drills we've wasted where we've had a guy go through a chute or go down the boards and the guy's holding the shield, or if he's without a shield, and you never have the defensive guy go forward or slant left or slant right, and you never have two guys working together. There's all of these time taker upper drills, foot fire, through the ropes or over the bags. Because
we don't do any ropes or over bags. I will say this: I do use boards, Coach, and I know that's.
Oh, that's okay. Boards are okay. But what I'm saying,
all right, good.
But as long as the defensive guy's coming at you,
I want. The thing that pisses me off and it bothers me I spend more time in practice coaching the defensive guys on how to give a
Alex
great.
Mirabal says
It chaps my ass unmercifully. Okay.
That's what every coach says, and you're 100% correct. That's why you should have a period where you block the defensive line and they go about 3/4 speed.
Coach, I've got a drill, and I don't know if I have access to it right here. But listen, I have a drill where there's look at this.
Here's my last Super Bowl losers ring. I had 3 of them that I gave to my kids.
Right.
Okay. I have 3 children and they got my 3 Bengals. This is a ring. Okay. The most expensive one. Now I'm giving that to my daughter-in-law because she's a Giants fan.
Man.
So I'm giving all my rings away because what am I going to do? Keep them in the fucking.
Yeah.
They don't even have those boxes anymore in the bank. They quit doing those.
Yeah.
I got a box of those at the house. This is the only ring I wear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I've got a here, I'm gonna show you here. But go ahead. Steve Saunier is a dude now.
Our great friend, both y'all's friends, Steve Saunier says, we have been ranked number 1 and number 2 in the nation the last 2 seasons with the least amount of TFLs in D2 football because we have been following Coach McNally's teachings and taking care of the line of scrimmage first, not piercing.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, hey,
there's my collection I get to give to my kids one day.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? There's a bunch of them. Some of them were
a lot of bowl games, Coach.
Yeah. We're fortunate to be around some really good players and really good coaches, and and the whole deal. But
keep going. Okay, I'm going to sign off now, but we can do this again. I'm not the kind of guy that says, "Oh, I'll only give you an hour." Sometimes I'll go 4 or 5 hours, but like I say, right now I got a few things to do.
Let me ask you one thing before you go, Coach. Okay,
yes,
one last thing. You live in Buffalo,
New York.
Okay, your favorite wing in Buffalo? I got mine. I'm an upstate New York guy. Okay?
I know you're upstate New York guy. I know you.
Right. So
you went to Did you go to Hamilton College?
I went to Hamilton College. I played football with Joe Gilbert at Hamilton College when he was a senior. I was
in college because my Hamilton College, though, really isn't in Hamilton, New York.
Well, it's in Clinton, New York.
New York, because my the last coach I worked for at Buffalo when I was at Buffalo was a guy named Bob Deming, who ended up being the athletic director at Ithaca College, and I think he was a coach at Colgate after he left UB. But
right. Colgate's in Hamilton, Hamilton's in Clinton.
Yeah, so yeah. I know that.
All right, so your favorite wing in Buffalo?
Favorite wings in Buffalo? Well, I will tell you this. In my opinion, okay, I love chicken wings, okay?
Okay.
But in my opinion, if you get the normal chicken wing, that's got medium hot,
right?
They're basically all the same. But I am not an expert on all of the different places. I've been to the Armor Inn or whatever the hell's the name of it.
Right.
Have
you ever been to Gabriel's Gate?
Gabriel's Gate. Well, I believe it. I'll have to try them.
So that's my spot. That was my spot. Now, I mean, it's been a while since I've been there, so hopefully I didn't screw them up. But that was always my spot in Buffalo was Gabriel's Gate. They got great wings there. And then the last thing is, and please, I hope for the love of God that you have the right answer here.
Yeah.
Ranch or blue cheese? Ranch or blue cheese?
I'm thinking blue cheese.
You're damn right it's blue cheese. You can't be ranch. Anybody who eats ranch, come on, man. But you got to turn in your man card if you put ranch on chicken.
Ranch is too it's too juicy. The blue cheese, you got the crumbles, and
That's right.
It's a little thicker.
Yeah, it's got the little bit. It's perfect, perfect pairing. So that I don't want to hear anybody talk about ranch ever again.
Look what I got here now. I got fucking hearing aids. This is the left one because it's blue. Okay, so I don't screw up the colors, because just within the last year, everything became muffled. And when you get these hearing aids that are very expensive, everything is loud and sharp. So when you get to the point when you got to get the hearing aids,
my wife thinks I need hearing aids, but I just have selective hearing.
Yeah,
I just, that's what I want to hear.
Everything was kind of muffled, and I was always saying what,
Right.
and so
that's what I say to my wife all the time when she asks me a question. I go, "What?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, Coach. I know you got to go, man.
Okay. See you later, guys.
See you, Coach.
Thank you so much, Troy.
Man.
That was, like I said, man. That's a bucket list for me. I'm like honestly humbled to be able to spend time with a guy that when you think, and I think I posted this on Twitter a little while back. In my mind, when you think about the Mount Rushmore of O-line coaches, right? Jim McNally, right, is the first guy that comes to my mind, and I'm sure most everybody's mind, right? Alex Gibbs, and I'm fortunate right now. I work with Alex's son, David Gibbs, is our defensive back coach and co-defensive coordinator. Of course, Coach Gibbs passed away last year, and that was a big loss. But Alex Gibbs is incredibly influential, right? I'm a huge fan of Dante Scarnecchia, with the Patriots for how many years, and just I've listened to a lot of his talks, and he did an unbelievable talk with the Cool Clinic a couple of years ago. I've listened to some podcasts with him. I just think he's unbelievable, and then Howard Mudd, of course, and that was another guy that we've lost recently. But Howard's book, I read Howard's book a couple of years ago. That was one of my beach reads. But to be able to just spend the last hour and 20 minutes hour and a half with Coach McNally, for a guy that grew up watching, Anthony Munoz and saying, just being an offensive line dude, that was unbelievable. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's like you're from New York. It reminds me kind of like Customato and Mike Tyson.
Right.
They ended up together.
Yeah.
And me and Coach McNally just ended up together. And I got him on Twitter. And I told him the first day I met him, I said, Coach, anybody can coach Anthony Munoz. But to get you to change 2 pictures on Twitter and change your name from Jim McNally 578392 to Coach McNally OL, it's the greatest coaching job I've ever done. It took an hour. It took an hour to change his name in 2 pictures. And the world's never been the same. Yeah. I mean, he's 14,000 followers.
Yeah.
Man. And he doesn't understand how loved he truly is.
Well, what he puts out on a daily basis is invaluable. And I know that when you get into the O-line community, and really football coaching community for that matter, it's like if you ever want to, it's like which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So let's have that discussion. Is for evolution and scientists and all that stuff. If you want to have the same type of discussion in the O-line community, say is this duo or inside zone? You know what I'm saying? Once you ask that question, it like blows up the whole O-line world of everybody's got an opinion and all that stuff, right? And sometimes I think that coaches, particularly young coaches, and that if they had a great understanding of really research and have an understanding of who Jim McNally is and what he's meant to the game and continues to mean to the game, and what he's doing right now with these videos that he puts out is just phenomenal.
It's taking him to another level. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I can't think of somebody that was great, and then they were forgotten, and then boom, they blew back up. I mean, I can't think. I mean, because that's what happened. Right. I mean, for 10 years, people heard from him once a year, when he was at the Cool Clinic. But now, every morning you wake up, there he is. I mean, he told me, did you used to get his newsletter that he used to fax or he used to mail?
Oh, yeah.
I told him, I said, Coach, Twitter was invented for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to fax. You don't have to mail. He said, because the fax machines wouldn't work. He's got Twitter. I mean,
I think when anybody that's ever been to the Cool Clinic, Coach McNally would always be like one of the last speakers because you didn't know how long he was going to go. He might go for 6 hours, and it was always, new thoughts. Yeah. It's kind of like Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy, right? On the old Saturday Night Live skit, but it was New Thoughts with Coach McNally, and he would start throwing up film and just talking through things, and it really helped. It made you expand your mind. You know what I'm saying about how you can go about doing things, and But here's what I would also say, okay. And one thing I've learned, just having coached for so long is, there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of things that that make sense. That it's like plays. Okay, there's a lot of great plays. Every play is a great play. Right. I mean, every play is designed to score a touchdown, really. I mean, nobody's ever drawn up a play to say, let's hope this gains 2 yards. Everybody wants to score. Okay. And every offensive scheme, right? I mean, if you sat there and you talked to Ken Diamatololo for 2 days, you'd think, why haven't I been running Navy's offense ever since I started coaching football? Because it's a great offense. Right. But what you've got to do is you've got to look at, like with Coach McNally's, the things that he's presenting and talking about on with these videos is does it fit, who you are as a coach, as an offense, or as a philosophy? Okay. Does it fit into what you're trying to accomplish? Okay. And then B, do I feel comfortable enough to teach it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because what you don't want to do is just start throwing crap on the wall. You know what I'm saying? And then half-assing it with your players. So all of these, concepts and thoughts are great. And when I would go to the Cool Clinic, I would come back with, just notepads full of notes that I would take. And whether it was a technique and fundamentals or whether it was a schematic thought or whatever. And then I would have to go through my notes, and then I would actually highlight. I'd take a highlighter out and say, okay, this fits for what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish at whatever school I was at. So if I'm looking at something right now, right, this fits for what we're doing here at Central Florida. Okay. This fits at UCF. This fits for our offense. This thought, great thought, but does it necessarily fit who we are? No. So I don't have to necessarily push that thing forward, even though it's a great thought, right? Because there's so much good stuff out there. But you got to figure out as a coach, what fits who you are, what fits what your program's about, what fits your culture, what fits your head coach's vision, what fits your offensive coordinator's vision, okay, and then what can I effectively go out on the field and teach? Because if you can't teach it, you're wasting your time. You're spinning your wheels, right? So I think it's all really good stuff, okay? But I would always caution guys, just to say, hey, does this fit what you're trying to accomplish as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's like the mad scientist. I mean, he's moved the needle, and now he's even moving it more since coming to Twitter. But I mean, I guess you got to be the mad scientist to move it, because if you're just in the middle of the road, it don't ever move. I mean, there's young coaches now. I mean, I haven't met one coach that's came to my school that does not follow him on Twitter. I mean, who are the young coaches that you know, that you've talked to? I mean, your players. I mean, what do they say? Did they know him before, and do they know him now?
Well, I think in the coaching community, if you're an O-line guy, for sure.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too. Okay, I give our quarterback coaches and wide receiver coaches, I call them 7-on-7 coaches. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I said, but if you really want to learn football, learn the line of scrimmage. Learn the line of scrimmage. Okay. And so if you've grown up as an O-line coach, or you've been an O-line coach that's really dialed in, I mean, Coach McNally is, you know what I mean? But if you didn't know, there's no reason now not to know, because everybody's on, not everybody, but most people have a Twitter account, have a social media account, or have access to it. Everybody in the world has access to it. So there's no excuse not to know who Jim McNally is, and then what he's brought to the game of football. And if you don't know, do your research and figure it out. Who he is, and then understand that when you're sitting there, if you want to, sometimes I know coach will chirp back at somebody that's got a or whatever. And it's like, do you realize who you're questioning here? You know what I mean? I mean, come on, man. But I saw this thing the other day. Now, this is a little bit on a tangent here.
That's all right.
But I saw this thing the other day, and I think it was on Twitter or whatever. And I can't remember who even said it, but somebody had posted up a deal about, like, okay, when you're looking at your offense, right? How do you want to go about developing your offense, not just philosophically for the big picture of it, or for the long haul of your program, but even that specific year, right? Is how do you go about developing your offense for your personnel that you have for that year? Well, this guy said the first thing you do is you think players. Okay, then you think formations. How can I best use my personnel within certain formations? And then it's about plays. And I really agree. I believe that, right? Because it's a player's game, and particularly when you get into, really critical situations, right? Is, one of the cliches, or whatever you want to call it, is think players, not plays.
Mm-hmm. That's what he said.
Plays. How are you going to get the ball into your best playmaker's hand when the game's on the line, right? And then you had some young coach, or who I guess he was a young coach, came and he commented on the deal, and he was like, "Well, I don't think that's right. I think it's plays first, then formations, and then it's players. You can just plug the players in." And I don't get into a lot of that.
Bill
stuff.
Belichick don't say that.
I really wanted to type in there and say, how can we get you on the schedule? You know what I'm saying? Because, there's, I think that a lot of times now, and again, I give, sometimes I give guys hard times about being, scheming McSchemerton, I call them. You know what I mean? Like, if you think you're going to out scheme everybody all the time, when it really boils down to is the players. And then again, what are you able to teach them that they can go out on the field and execute at a high level, right? So it boils down to players, okay? And then at the end of the day, it really, when you boil it all the way down, right, it comes into execution and technique and fundamentals and assignment, and don't ever lose sight of that. everybody can, like, I got a big grease board in there behind me, and I can go up there and I can draw up a bunch of plays on the board. Okay. And I think that scheme's important. Don't get me wrong. Scheme is important. Okay. But as an offensive line coach, we always have to walk that fine line between, I always call it the who-tos and the how-tos, right? The who-tos being the scheme and understanding assignment football and what their assignments are. But if I got a guy that I just scheme, and then they get out on the field and they don't know how to block it, right, or how to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, then it's not going to be worth anything. And then on vice versa, if all I do is just work on technique fundamentals all the time, but the guys don't know who to block, right? But they could block they could base block a 3 technique, or they could work a double team on a 3 technique to a backside backer, but they don't know when to employ it. Okay, you can't do that as well. So there's got to be a fine line that you walk between who-tos and how-tos. Okay, but if you gave me an hour, if you said, okay, coach, you got an hour to plan out a practice, how are you going to divide up your time? I would spend probably 40 minutes of it on technique and fundamentals and 20 minutes of it on scheme. Because when it comes down to it, you can always fall back on great technique and fundamentals and have success, and just keep things basic if you have to. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Block the guy in front of you. I don't know. 0, 1, 2, 3. Center's got 0. Guards
I like
got
what you were saying the other day about, stay on your man. If you stay on your man, he ain't making the tackle. You know what I mean?
That's it.
And so, we
I
always
learned that from my coach. My coach, Matt Bland, who played at WVU, he was on the West Virginia team that lost to Notre Dame. He was coached by Mike Jacobs. And
Right.
I know you know
Mike
Coach Jacobs. They
I know
coached
Mike
Orlando Pace. We
Right.
never flippered. In 1992, when I learned as a freshman, we never flippered because Mike Jacobs ain't teach it. He taught locking on. Boom. We locked on. So that's all I knew. I mean, I guess you coach what you know. Yeah, man. I mean,
yeah.
man, I'm getting fired up
One of
now,
the
man.
terms-
Coach me, man.
Well, one
Yeah,
of the terms I
stick with your man.
use is I always say, finish on your man. Finish on your man. Don't finish on air, and don't finish on the ground unless you're pancaking the dude.
Yeah.
But you cannot play on the ground. If you got a guy that's continually falling on the ground, you can't play with those guys. They can't stay on their feet.
Yeah.
So don't be on the ground,
Yeah,
and don't be
athletes
on
fall
air.
down.
And don't be on air when you finish the play, man. Finish on your man.
Have you listened to the Al Groh? Have you listened to the Al
That's
Groh?
that's one I have not listened to yet.
Oh my gosh.
It's
the greatest.
That's on my list to listen to. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to learn about Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, like, there ain't no better podcast. I mean, 2 hours with Al Groh nonstop. I used to watch him at practice at UVA.
I'm gonna have to listen to that one. When I was, again, one of my, coaching heroes is Bill Parcells. I mean, I grew up a Giants fan, and I've read everything that you can imagine on Bill Parcells.
It's the greatest podcast of all time.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to that one. We played UVA when I was at West Virginia.
Y'all played him in the Continental Tire Bowl.
In the Continental Tire Bowl in 2002. Oh, you were? Yeah. They had Wally Lundy. Wally Lundy was a New Jersey guy from Holy Cross High School in New Jersey. He was their tailback.
Jason Snellings. Jason Snellings was a tailback too. He's from LC Bird.
Yeah, the freshman tackle, DeBerkashaw Ferguson.
Coach McNally still talks about him.
Yeah, he was a freak. He was from Long Island. So we had a really good defense that year at West Virginia. And I'll never forget, I always tell this story when we start talking about, we like to have a good assortment of trick plays or gadget plays, right? Whatever you want to call them, specials. Okay, we like to go into a game with a good assortment of them because it makes people stay honest and not over pursue and things of that nature. Well, we had a hell of a defense that year, and I think Virginia ran in the first half, I think they ran about 6 reverses, throwbacks,
Bill Musgrave,
double passes, double
Bill
strap, all
Musgrave.
these things. They ran about 6 or 7 of them in the first half because our defense was really aggressive and we were good. And then in the second half, they lined up in 12 personnel and basically ran outside zone at us. And we were playing on our heels at that point because we were so worried about all the gadget stuff that it took the aggression out of our defense, you know. And I always use that game as an example of, you know, why you want to go into a game with, you know, a nice library of gadget plays, trick plays, specials, whatever you want to call them, you know, because it makes those defensive coaches
sit back,
unnerves them. Yeah,
I mean, you can't be coming up and run support when here's a reverse, here's a toss pass, here's a double pass. Bill Musgrave was the offensive coordinator. Ron Prince was the O-line coach.
Right.
Golly, Mike Groh, he's in the NFL.
Yep, I know Mike. Yep.
Yeah, so that Al Groh one is one of the best of all time. Let me ask you this, Coach. Your head coach is Tom Herman, correct?
No. It's our head coach, Gus Malzahn. Tom Herman's now at Florida Atlantic.
Okay.
I work with Tom Herman at Texas, but he's at Florida Atlantic now.
Okay, Gus Malzahn.
Yes.
Do you or Gus Malzahn know what is the percentage? Now, you're a college football coach. Most of your officials are professional. I mean, you probably don't have guys who, like, I don't know, don't have a job or can't pass a background check. But what's the percentage of flags thrown for holding compared to your sideline to your opponent's sideline? Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah, we always have our.
We can't run the ball to the other team's sideline. We get a holding call every time.
Right.
So
Let me tell you this, Coach. I'll tell you this. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of stats, and I'm really, again, I've been around some really good players and really good teams, but when I was at Vanderbilt, okay, number one, I had a guy named Wesley Johnson who I coached 51 games at Vanderbilt. Okay. We played in 3 straight bowl games when I was there. And 3 straight my last 3 years. We played 12 games the first year and then 39 games the rest of the 3 years. And Wesley Johnson started all 51 games for us. Okay. Wesley Johnson went 43 games and 3 quarters before he was ever called for a holding penalty. He played 43 straight games and 3 quarters. And in his senior year, in the 44th game, and in the beginning of the 4th quarter of the 44th game of his career, he got his very first holding penalty as an offensive lineman. Now, why was that? Okay, well, there was some holds he got away with. Okay, that's just the nature of it. Okay. But the reason why he didn't get called for holding very much, all right, and I think he wound up his whole career having like 2 holding penalties his entire career, okay? But he got the first one was his 4th year starting for me, 44 games into it, okay? And the reason why he never got called for holding is because of what you said a little bit ago, okay, is that he finished on his man and he strained and he ran his feet. And you know, I always tell guys that there's 2 ways that you get called for holding initially, okay? One is if my hands are outside the frame of my defender, okay? That's the first way. So if my hands are outside, replace them, right? Yeah. So we work on replacing our hands and all that stuff. If I got one hand outside, I'll try to refit it and make sure I'm getting it in the frame, okay? The other way is if my hands are outside of my frame.
Yeah,
okay?
That's a good point.
And that's what happens when your feet get beat. Okay, if you stop moving your feet and your hands get outside the frame of your body, that's when you get yourself in trouble for holding. Now, I've had times, and I know I heard this question from one of the guys on the podcast before about, you know, if you have a bad run, is it the offensive line's fault or is it the running back's fault?
That's right? Wyatt Bode.
Yeah, it happens, right? And you figure it out. Each play has its own story. Okay.
So what's your philosophy on that?
Well, no, I think that again, if you have to watch the film to determine where the breakdown occurred, okay. But my point was with holding was I've gotten guys got called for holding because the running back made a cut that did not fit into what as the play was unfolding. It was an unnatural movement that the running back made a decision, and it put the lineman in a position where he's expecting the defense to react a certain way, and all of a sudden they don't. And the defense goes opposite of what he's thinking, and then his hands get outside the frame of his body. He winds up grabbing, and that's real. That's what that happens sometimes. So sometimes a holding call can be attributed to the fact that the running back did not run the track that he was supposed to, and he put the lineman at risk for it. Now, so that gets to my third point is knowing when to let go. Okay. So my hands get outside the frame of my body. Let go. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Okay. Is the penalty is not worth it. I would rather take a 2-yard gain or a 3-yard gain than a 10-yard penalty. Okay. Yeah. So know when to let go. Well, that's how Wesley Johnson went 44 games or 43 games and 3 quarters without getting called for holding. Okay. He understood his hands were going to be inside the frame. When his hands got outside of his frame, he knew when to let go. But very rarely did that happen because he always kept his feet moving. Okay. That's the first stat that from a holding standpoint that I wanted to convey to you. And then the second thing is this. My best year at Vanderbilt, and I've had another year where we only had 3 holding penalties. But I went through the whole year and we had 2 holding penalties the entire season on the offensive line. One of them was our left guard. They were both on the left guard. 2 different guys, but they were both on the left guard. But we were playing a team that was not as physically they weren't as good as us. Okay. And my left guard took a 3 technique and just torqued him and tackled him. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he got called for holding. It was stupid. It was bad technique on his part. And then the other one, our left guard got on a screen pass in the open field. And this was back when you could cut guys. Now you can't even cut them anymore. And our rule was you get in the open field on a DB, the great equalizer was the fact I could throw and cut. Yeah. And he went out in the open field, and instead of throwing and cutting, he went out there and he tackled the dude, and he got called for a holding penalty. So those were the 2 holding penalties that we had the entire season. Okay. So I do believe that you can coach how not to get called for holding. You understand what I'm saying? Like, yes, sir. It's easy to complain about it. Right. And and have there been some holding calls that I would disagree with? 100%. You know what I mean? And do I bitch about it sometimes? Yeah. Okay. Because I don't agree with it. But at the end of the day, the dude called the penalty. Mm-hmm. Right. So what do I got to do as a coach to put my kids in a position where they don't get called for that? Now, what you're saying is, hey, I'm going to run the ball to our sideline because what happens? The ball goes down the opponent's sideline.
It's holding. They're yelling it.
Somebody on their sideline is yelling, he's holding, and then they throw a flag, whatever. So maybe you got to do that.
Yeah, we do.
But I do believe that you have to coach what constitutes a penalty, and then how can I go about eliminating that? And I actually took the time one year when I was at Vanderbilt. We had some SEC officials that lived in Nashville, and during the off season, had one of the back judges. He came to my office, and we sat in my office for several hours and watched film. And he wanted to learn more about schematically, because they really didn't know. They don't understand.
They don't know anything.
Inside zone and a power.
No.
But he wanted to learn it, which was good on his part. And I wanted to pick his brain on what he's actually looking for, and what are they seeing, and sometimes the officials, I always tell my guys, officials see things in snapshots.
Yeah.
They don't see the entire action.
No.
So now all of a sudden, all they do is they see your hands out here like this and your feet are beat and they throw a flag. Well, they didn't see what led to that. Okay. But they do see things in snapshots. They see your hand outside and you give a little tug and they throw a flag. Well, how can I eliminate that? My hand's outside, replace my hand. Don't leave it there. But they got to be coached on that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I mean, talk about Alex Gibbs, and one of Alex Gibbs's great lectures, probably one of the Gilmans. He says, I get a cut of every hold that has been called in the NFL for the entire season, and I watch it, and that's what I don't coach. I mean, you remember him saying that?
Oh, yeah. At the Gilman. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. That might have been the same talk where he said when they go in practice, they're going to tackle the guys on the backside instead of carve them up. And if the head coach had a problem with that, he would have to fire him.
Yeah.
Because this is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I mean, who are they going to hire? I mean, there ain't nobody. I mean, is he the most savage offensive line coach? I mean, the most savage. I mean, I had Bob McKittrick was a great football coach. And he's kind of another guy that, you know, we've kind of forgotten about him. He won Super Bowls. But Randy Cross. I got to talk to Randy Cross, man. I mean, what a legend. And he played, he played for Bill Walsh and he played for, coach at UCLA, Dick Vermeil.
Right.
So, I mean, man.
Well, if again, young coaches, right, that are looking for, because I get guys they'll text me or they'll send me a message and they'll say, hey, you know, where can I get information? Like I'm a big Crowther sled guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And, you know, do you have any of your Crowther clinic talks that are available online, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, look, go on YouTube and put in Bob McKittrick Crowther. And there's about 2 hours worth of Crowther sled work with Bob McKittrick going from the basics of the Crowther sled. Now he's out there, he's got his bike, coaching shorts on.
Yeah.
Those nut huggers that coaches used to wear and all that.
Yeah, I remember.
Stuff. He got he's got a medium shirt on, so it's nice.
He looks like Joe Rogan. I mean,
he's just rocked up. And
I used to think he looked old, but now when I look at him, I'm like, he looks just like Joe Rogan. Like,
yeah. But it's a great video that's available at no cost. Go on YouTube and look up Bob McKittrick, and you'll find a Crowther sled video that will give you the step A to Z on how you want to go about teaching blocking leverage on a Crowther sled, you know. And but yeah, Bob McKittrick, great old line coach. Obviously, Jim Hannafin and Joe Bugle and
Conrad Dobler's coach.
Yeah, he was pretty vicious. So yeah. But when you think about again, to me, the Mount Rushmore guys, Alex Gibbs, Jim McNally, okay, Dante Scarnecchia, okay, and Howard Mudd. Those are the four guys that that when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of old line coaches. So, in my opinion, but everybody's got that's like asking who's better, LeBron or Michael. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I know
you get into those type of guys. But
so, Coach, we're already at 2 hours.
Yes, sir.
What would you like to say, Coach? I mean, we'll have you back on, Coach, where you can do your whole deal. But what would you like to say to the high school coaches out there, the coaches that have listened? I mean, it's amazing, the guys who are actually listening to this podcast. We've only been doing it since January.
Right.
I mean, what would you like to say to all the coaches out there, Coach?
I was at a high school the other day because we just got off the road, doing spring recruiting. And I was at a high school the other day and I was and it was the first time I had met this coach. But we were talking about he had a young man who had a hard background, which some guys have had it easier than others, and some guys have had to overcome more adversity than others. And everybody has a story. Everybody has a story, and that's one thing that you always got to remember with your players, right? Is that everybody's got a story, right? Find out what their story is. But this young man had a rough background, and so I was walking out with him, and I said, Coach, when I was coaches for me, growing up, were a huge part of my life because my parents got divorced when I was 2. My mom my mom married my stepdad when I was 10. We kind of moved around. My stepdad was in the Air Force, and we moved from northern Maine. I grew up in northern Maine till I was 10.
Wow.
And then we moved to upstate New York, and that's where my folks still live. My dad has, kind of been all over the place, different places, lived in a lot of different places and whatnot. I have a great relationship with my dad, and I have a great relationship with my stepdad. But when I was, in the teen years, right, when you
think you know it all.
When your parents, and then you got my stepdad. I love my stepdad. He's my, he's a true father figure. He was again, he was in the military, and but when you're a teenager and you're an idiot and you sit there and you say, "Hey, you're not my dad," when he tries to discipline you or whatever, and I said those things, you know what I mean? I think back on it, and I'm like, man, what just a complete idiot I was, you know what I mean? And here's my stepdad just trying to do the best he can, and anyway, during that time period, okay, I gravitated a lot to coaches, okay, and so high school coaches, youth coaches, you guys may be one of the few, if not only, positive male role model in a young man's life, or not just a young man, but it could be anybody in your school. You know what I'm saying? And so don't ever forget that. And I think sometimes, I had a buddy of mine that he had 3 daughters or has 3 daughters, and they were all there. One daughter was a volleyball player, and one daughter was a basketball player, and his one daughter was into like competitive dance and that sort of thing. And he was working on, it was when his one daughter was a basketball player. He was coaching on her like 6th grade team, right? And this guy is a vice president of a toy company. Okay, that's what he does for a living, right? But he goes, man, I'm coaching on my daughter's 6th grade team, and he goes, and don't get me wrong, it's not like what you do. And I went, hey, yo, his name's Rick, right? I'm like, Rick, don't underscore what you're doing. If you're coaching, you may be the only positive male role model in that young girl's life. You may be, she may be signing a Division I scholarship at some point in the future, and she may say, I want to thank Coach Mershon, my 6th grade basketball coach, for instilling the passion of competitive team sports in me at a young age. And that's why I've been able to accomplish what I've been able to. You never know. You know what I'm saying? You don't know. Okay. And, the one thing when I was a kid and I was coming up, probably my greatest fear was that, I would live my life, be on this planet for however many years God gives me. Okay. But that I would live my life and then I would be gone and I would leave no mark. You know what I mean? I would make no difference. I wouldn't have a legacy. Okay. And, being a father, that's our greatest legacy. Okay. I got 3 great kids. They're all grown now, but I got 3 awesome kids. Okay. And they're my greatest legacy. But I also look at the young men and the men that I've had the opportunity to work with over the course of the last, going on 34 years now, whatever. And if I walked out of this podcast and went and got in my car, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but you never know. If I got hit by a bus on the way home, I've had a great run, and I've made differences in young men's lives. And that's as a coach. I don't care what level you're coaching at. as a coach every day, you have the opportunity to do that. Okay. I hear people say at times, that we are not what we do. Okay. We're human beings. We're not human doings. Okay. I've heard people say that, right? You're not a human doing. You're not defined by what you do. You're defined by who you are, right? Well, I don't agree with that. Not for me. Now, for some people, I think that probably is applicable. Okay. Like my wife, she was in pharmaceutical sales for 20 years, and she would never have defined herself as, my name is Deb, and I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep. And oh, by the way, I'm also a mom, and I'm also a wife, and I'm also a daughter. She would have described herself as wife, mother, daughter, and oh, by the way, I do pharmaceutical sales, to make my living. Okay. But as a coach, that's off that for us as coaches, man, coach is as much of my identity as father and husband and son. Okay. And friend. Okay. Being a coach is much more a part of who I truly am. And part of who who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And I'm blessed to be able to say that. Really,
I've been blessed too, man. Like this guy right here, Matthew Saunders. Coach, I went 9-1, 2 out of my first 3 years as a head coach, and didn't make the playoffs. Yeah, I lost one game by 1 point. To Thomas Dale High School, my first year as a head coach at Meadowbrook High School, and they went on to win the state championship. And Matt was on that team. He was a linebacker and a fullback. And now he has 16,000 followers. I don't even know if he wants me to say this, but he runs the Last Fullback Twitter account. And his grandpa was the defensive coordinator at L.C. Byrd High School from 1983 until about 2010. Yeah. And we still run the same defense, Coach. And we got the Michigan Wings because they came from Alpena, Michigan, and we run the I formation. Yeah. Yeah, Coach. Matt said, great message, Coach. Always felt like the true measure of a coach is seen years later, watching their players get married, become successful parents, have successful careers in life. And his dad was also a great rec coach here in Chesterfield.
No, but that would be my message, is that I know that there's times when, you're hearing it from players' parents, or you're hearing it from people in the community, you're hearing it from social media, you're hearing all this noise, and it can be, if you let it, it can become overwhelming. But man, just always remember what we are put on this planet to do, thankfully, like I said, I've been blessed to be able to make a career out of this, and then to have a guy like Coach McNally, who's been doing it for, before I was born. I mean, I heard him the other day. He said, I started coaching in 1965. I was born in 68. You know what I mean? So he's been doing it longer than I've been alive. And to have him on this podcast has just been like a dream come true for him.
He got into an argument with Wade Bode, whose name is Wyatt Bode, but he calls you Wade. And he asked him, what was he smoking? I mean, the kid's 21 years old, Coach. He's a 9th grade coach in Minnesota. And Coach McNally felt like, I'm going to tell you, I got cussed out by Coach McNally twice yesterday. All right. I'm never going to ask him to put on another virtual reality headset.
Right.
I mean, I learned my lesson, Coach.
Just do me a favor. Get him a new canister.
Oh.
What are we doing?
Coach, did you know what it was when he showed it?
As soon as he started, I was like, oh, man, come on, man. It's going to go down this road. But that was –
will you ever forget today?
Dude, that was fantastic. I mean, I'm going to be
Coach, this is my life.
I'm telling that story in our next staff meeting. I promise you.
Well, Coach, this is my life. I mean, it's just people told me, Troy, you should have had someone following you for the last 20 years because you would be famous. I would be on Netflix, but I would probably be in prison too. Steve Saunier, Coach Hand is the real deal. Yes. Great message. What a great coach.
Steve Saunier is an unbelievable football coach. And, you know, I got an unbelievable respect for him. I actually told him, you know, we have a place up not far from West Florida. What a great
Paradise. In Paradise.
Yeah, we got a little spot out there on 30A. But I told Coach Saunier, you know, one day when I'm up there full time, you know, I may be driving over to West Florida to come hang out with those guys just to scratch my itch. You know what I mean? And I'll be like they won't have to pay me like the Cincinnati paid Coach McNally. They just got to buy me a burger every once in a while or something.
Yeah, man.
No, but you talk about a great program and a great football coach. You know, I got unbelievable respect for Coach Saunier and the job they do at West Florida. So.
Yes. Thank you, Coach. Hey, I'm going to press in, then we'll talk just for a little bit more. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Coach.